This is a story of Marcia Blum. Marcia has made tremendous contributions to her community. She has worked in open adoptions, hospice care, a senior program, and a tri-faith community effort. She's also worked tirelessly against sex trafficking. Marcia, you've worked in hospice care. What advice might you give to the healthcare workers and to the families of people with COVID-19 who are dying alone in the hospital?
This is an extremely unique and difficult situation because in hospice, one of the things we offer is a NODA program, which is No One Dies Alone. And in a situation where someone's in a COVID unit, that's not always possible. So I think we have to think creatively about what can be done. And the staff then are given much more of the responsibility and opportunity to be that person that is giving care at end of life. And I would go back to Ira Byock and what he felt people needed to consider at end of life. And that was to think about the questions, I forgive you, please forgive me, I love you, thank you. And with these people, it might be also goodbye. And there might not be a lot of time, but if any staff are able to say, we don't know, if you're going to make it or not, but we encourage people to think about what they might need to forgive themselves for or to forgive others. And if they feel like there's people that they want to say, thank you, forgive me, or I love you, and that if that's the case, they would make a point to try to do that for them. That could be done through a FaceTime. It could be done through a note. Again, time seems to be a real issue, but sometimes if someone could take, even if it's a yellow sticky tab, and if they want to say, I love you and thank you, and write their name and let that person know that this will be given to their family. I'm not aware of all the restrictions there might be. If that person would have the opportunity to sign it in their own handwriting, even better for the survivors. But I think the end of life reflection of life review, if anyone has an opportunity to sit with them, and this is all based on how much oxygen they have and how much talking they could do, but to sit and encourage them to think back about, what were some of the highlights of your life. You may not be able to share this, but if you could, think about what you'd like to have your family know about you, or to say to them, or to be remembered by. I think that there are ways to give back, to get those people to think in ways that reflect upon their life and what they've contributed, even in short periods. But it's being creative, like I say, and maybe the hospitals, if, again, it wouldn't contaminate, and that's all part of it, if they would be able to have a little note or a little sticky tab or something, whether that would have to be, decontaminated or how that works, I don't know. And again, if there's a phone that people could, or a iPad that the family could see that person, and that person could see the family, and encourage them, whatever they want to say, this is your opportunity. And they might even coach the family with, thank you, forgive me, I love you. and I think for people to know that they're being prayed for, that it may be that the world, our world is praying for you. We're doing everything we can. There's people trying to get the best services and support, to not let that person feel like they're kind of just being left to die. And that even from the staff, that it's not their fault at all, but I'm sorry, we can't do more, or that you have to be alone during this time. That humanness, that human connection of person to person. This is unfair. It shouldn't be like this, but know that there's people who love you and you matter, and whatever we can do, we will.
I heard of one family situation where they were on an iPad with the person, their father, who was dying in the hospital. And they had 30 hours until he passed. And they talked about past history and their stories and the wonderful things that they remembered with that person.
Oh.
Have you got any other thoughts for the families that are in that situation?
Wow, what a gift that they were able to do that. It's in the midst of so many negative situations of having no contact. That is beautiful. In addition, I think contact is the biggest loss that we're seeing. And I found that people who are at end of life can be comforted sometimes with music. Music that may be comforting to them. For some, it could be country western. For some, it could be big time jazz bands. For another, there could be, but the family may know, and you may be able to play something that is soothing or has meaning, if that's available in the hospital. Music triggers certain things for people, and it can bring back good memories, and the family might be able to help with that. So music, and if there's special memories that the family has of them, that they can get to somebody and have them say, you are going to be missed because of this. We are going to carry on this legacy that you gave us. If they can hear that in those situations, I think that helps them put a bigger piece to their life than just laying there alone. I know that even not COVID alone, but for the elderly, loneliness itself is an issue. And this just, exacerbates it to the utmost. So the things that I have encouraged are, phone calls, knowing people wait for phone calls. That might be the highlight of a day. And if that can happen in the unit, that they can talk to a family member, that's helpful. And then you talked about the iPad or ways to see family members. If based on restrictions, if they can be given a special food that they love, or a drink that they love, or a scent that they love. Sometimes you have to think outside the box. It reminds me, when I was working in hospice, there was a woman, and she was from a rural community in the mid-state, and had no children, and her spouse had died. So she was in a skilled facility on hospice, and she had a trach. And because she had a trach, she had a feeding tube, which means that not even 3 times a day did she have meals and an opportunity to socialize with people that way. So she was extremely lonely. And in talking to her, we talked about what were some of the things that she really missed and some of the things she loved in life. And life review was part of what we did with people who were at a terminal time in their life. And she said she so much missed the smell and taste of an orange. It was one of the things she loved, and she just said that the juice and the smell. And so I said, oh, I'd love to bring you an orange, but with the trach and everything, she couldn't do that. Well, I brought it to our team meeting, and with the approval of the medical director, we were able to bring her an orange, let her peel it, smell it, dribble it on her mouth, and then have to wipe it off. But she got that little of an experience. But it sometimes thinking outside the box, what is something that might give pleasure, and also let them know that they're not forgotten, that there are people who care and want to continue making life as tolerable or positive as possible based on the circumstances.
The other thing I found is that I thought that somber music might be the preferable way to go. And so I made this CD of one of my very best friends who was dying, and we were not in the same city. And she said, "That's terrible music. I want my good music." So I thought, people don't necessarily, you think of in dying, maybe everything should be quiet and somber, and that's not necessarily what they want.
Really, it's things that have a meaning to them, or that bring them a sense of joyous memory. And I think it's by either asking them or family, because when I was teaching, we had students work with some dementia patients, and they took iPods, and they were working with the family, loaded music. And that, some people responded more than they had to most anything else with music.
That's really interesting. Well, thank you so much for your contribution and for helping people get through this with some of your thoughts and ideas. Thank you.
Thank you, Nan.